Okay, everyone. So here we are, part two. We are going to now animate this text and make a nice little visual effect. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my Windows menu and I'm going to make sure that my timeline is turned on, right? So that's my timeline right there. And then if you remember, we're going to be creating an actual animation, not a video yet. So what we're going to do is I'm going to switch this and create a frame-based animation and click that button right here. That workflow, just to be clear, might be slightly different if you're using an older version of Photoshop like CS6 or an older CC version that's not 2014. You may not see that button, and when you go to timeline it may just show you this, but that's pretty much the difference. Okay, so that being said, here's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to create an animated effect that moves this actual font and this text. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go with my text tool again, right? Make sure you're on your text layer that has the cache word on it, right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this text like so. Okay, and then I want to point your attention to the actual options for the text tool on the top, and you're going to see right next to the right of the actual color picker right here, you're going to see a little letter T with a little arc underneath it, curve underneath it. This is the text warp tool. Okay, so I've selected this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click that tool here, and you see you're going to get the file and dialog box. Now, there's a series of predefined styles here that I can apply to this. So if we pull this down, you'll see here we have an arc right on the upper, right? We have an arc lower, right? We have an arc like so. We have a bulge, right? A shell, right? So there's all these different flag, right? Fisheye, right? That's a fisheye actually. Rise, so it looks like it's rising. Twisted, right? So what I'm going to do is I like to keep this simple. I'm going to do an arc upper, okay? Or actually, you know what? Let me just do a straight arc, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to manipulate the size of it, because right now it's too big. See, it's going off the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the bend just a little smaller by using this little bend control here, right? And maybe I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do a little bit of combination. I'll visually distort it, okay? And maybe do I want to horizontally distort it? Nah, let's just do the horizontal, okay? I can do visual or vertical, right? So that's the first part of this, okay? So I'll say okay on that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my timeline here, and I am going to add a frame, okay? So that being said, basically, let me unselect that, okay? And I'll go to my timeline here. Remember how this works. You select a frame, and then when you hit add a frame button, it adds another frame which duplicates the first frame, right? And remember how we said that these individual frames are tied directly to the layer composition, and each frame has its own unique layer composition, right? So what I'm going to do on frame 2, make sure I have frame 2 selected, is I'm going to go back in here, and with my text tool I'm going to select the cache again, and I'm going to go to my text warp tool, and this time I have a visual distortion, right, of the 26, minus 26. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the positive direction, and I'm going to make that be like 26, or close to it. It doesn't have to be exact, right? Okay. So now we have something. So if I say okay to that, we have this and this, this and this, this and this, right? So that's my animation, right? So now what I'm going to do on this, okay, is now I'm going to do my tween, right? So I'll say, let's select this and this, both frames here, and I'm going to say, click the button to tween my animation frames, okay, and then I get this tween dialog. Now I'm not sure exactly how it's going to do this with opacity or with effects or position, so I'm just going to leave all of these checked. I'm going to make sure I tween it with my selection, and I will add, let's do 5 frames, which is what the default is, okay? So I'll do that, okay? Now if I play this really quick, you'll see there's my effect. Right? You see how it kind of goes like that in one direction. All right. Now our goal here is to kind of make this look very repetitive and kind of go happen again and again. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go in here, and you see all these frames that I have, 7 frames. I'm going to go to the first frame, and with my shift key selected, I'm going to go to the last frame so I can select them all, right? And then just like every other palette in Photoshop, the timeline has options, right? So when I pull these out, I want you to see them all, so I'm going to pull this up a little bit, okay? When I pull this up, essentially what I see here is I see all of these options, right? So you'll see the one that we're going to look at is we're going to do the copy frames, all right? And so I copied all those frames that I have selected, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say paste frames. And now when I do that, I get this dialog box, and it asks me, do I want to paste it, replace any frames I have selected? Do I want to paste it over the selection, before the selection? We're going to do it after the selection, like so. So that's going to double the amount of frames we have, right? It's going to go from 7 to 14 frames, okay? Now, if we look at this now, it pretty much just looks like the same thing is happening twice, right? See how it's, let me pull this down a little more. You'll see how when I do that, kind of just snaps it like that. Now, to make the effect seem seamless, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select frame 8, hold down my shift key, select frame 14, pull up my options, and you have an option here which says reverse the frames, right? So the frames I have selected is going to reverse their direction. So now it's going to look like it goes one direction and then goes back in the other direction like so, right? So now if I hit play, you'll see we kind of have like a, and if I just put this on the loop forever, you can kind of see how the effect looks. All right? Okay. So that's a little simple animation that we've just generated there. Now I can also, if I really wanted to, go in here and move the graphic with the dollar signs, right? So in order to demonstrate this, let me stop this. Okay, I'm going to blow all these away. I'll say edit, delete, okay? And I'll do this again, okay? I'll add a new frame, right? And on the new frame, what I'm going to do is I'll select this, and I'll say, go to my timeline here. And then, like I said, I'm going to switch the digital distortion, right? So I'll go from minus 26 to like 26, okay? And if even if I wanted to add something to that, I could. So if I wanted to add, on the flip side, something like that. Not a lot. I don't want to go crazy and have it go off the screen, right? So that's what I'll do. Okay? And I'll say okay on that, right? So now, what I also want to do here, because that's the end state of the animation, remember that. I want to go to layer 0, right? And just to add a little movement to this, I'm just going to take my move tool, and I'm going to just slightly shift this up like so, okay? So now you have that, and that, that, and that. So not only is the text moving, but the graphic that has the clipping mask on it that's inside the text is actually going to move a little bit, okay? So, or if you didn't want to do it that way, right? Let's suppose I didn't want to do it that way. Right. Instead, what I'll do, let me just delete these both. Right. Instead of doing an actual move like I did, which won't seem as dramatic, what I can do is I can go and add a layer here, like so. Right. And then we'll select this again. Let me get my text tool here. I will select that, and I'm going to do the same sort of thing. Right. So I'll say, I don't know, whatever it comes out to, as long as it's close. Yeah, something like that. Okay. And we'll say, okay, it says before, after, make sure. Oh, that is clipping off the screen a little bit. I don't want to do that. So let me just pull that back out. And I don't want it to clip like that off the screen. So, I don't know, let's bring it in a little bit. It's still a little bit off the screen. Darn it. Okay, let me fix that again. Just I can't see. I don't have enough screen real estate here. So maybe I'm doing a little bit there. Okay, so that's fine. All right, that's good. Okay, so there's before and after, right? Before and after. So what I'll do on the after, on frame 2, is I'll go in here, and rather than just move the money a little bit, what I'll do is I'll scale it. So I'll go in here and I'll do a transform and I'll scale it, right? And I'll say, let's just zoom that in like so, and zoom it like so, right? So now I have this, and I'll just accept that. And then I have that, and that, that, and that. Okay, now here's the thing. You're probably looking at this saying, well, wait a minute, Dave, it doesn't look like it's changing there, right? And that's actually right, okay? Because one of the things that you have to be careful of is that you can't actually do a scale animation here. Okay, I can't scale this. I'd have to do that manually over time because if you remember, one of the three possibilities of doing animation are the position, okay, the opacity, and the effects, right? So scaling is not really part of that. There's no transformations in there. So basically, I can't really do a scale. So I am kind of stuck with a little bit of a move here. So let me go in there and I'll do the move like we said before. So maybe I'll just try to swing that down like so, right? So now there's that and there's that. Okay, I'm going to add in my first tween here. So I'm going to select both of these and I'm going to say tween and I'll leave 5 layers. Okay, so now if I look at that, you'll see there's the animated effect. See how the movement happens, right? Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll do the same thing. I'll select this and I'll say copy frames, right? And then I'll say, now that I copied them, I will paste the frames after my selection, right? And then those same frames that'll be selected, I will take them and reverse them, and let's give it a whirl, right? Okay. All right, so now that being said, I think it's time for us to export this as a movie. Now here's the thing, okay? When we export this as a movie, all we're going to get is this one pass, 14 frames, okay? So in a video that has 30 frames per second, that's only going to be a half a second video, right? So what I like to do here is I like to, and plus I have them all at 1%. Now, if I slow this down, it might be a little bit better. So if I give it a little bit of a delay, I mean, I kind of like it at 0, to be honest with you. But that's just me, okay? You have to make that decision, okay? So now let's do that so we can stick with the math, right? So right now it's about approximately 15 frames, which is about half a second of video, okay? So what I like to do is I like to add to this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's go to frame 1 and go hold my shift key to frame 14. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to copy these frames. And then I'm immediately going to paste the frames. Now when I paste it after the selection, that's going to make my video be a second, right? So now that I have 28 frames, that's about a second. It's a little less, slightly less, okay? But what I'll do is I'll go here and I'll copy the frames again, and then I'll say paste my frames after selection. That makes my video 2 seconds, right? And I'll say edit, paste, after selection, 3 seconds, right? Edit, paste, after selection, 4 seconds, right? Now, if I go here and I'll select, I have about 85 frames at this point, or 112 frames, excuse me. I'm going to select that and I'll say paste frames after selections. That's going to give me 8 seconds. So as you see, the more frames you have, depending on how long you want your video to be, if we go here and just keep selecting these frames and edit and paste the frames after, that's going to increase it more, right? So now I have about, 168, right? If I do the math, that's going to tell me that my video is probably about 16 seconds or so, right? Something like that, right? I got to do the math, but you know what I'm talking about, okay? So now that I have that in place, I'm just going to paste it one more time just to make sure I have a nice long video, okay? I'm also going to take this timeline and I'm going to drop it in place here. Boom. Okay, there's my timeline. Now, one thing that I like to do, they have an option here. So what I'm going to do is I'll select all these frames, okay? And let me pull this out again so you can see what we're doing, like so. Okay, they have an option here under here to optimize the animation. Okay, that cleans up any like rogue pixels or anything like that as you go from frame to frame to frame. Okay, so when I do that, okay, it's because how do you want to optimize it, by the bounding box and redundant pixel mover? Do both. Right, just to make it as smooth as possible, okay? And yeah, I mean, right now, if I wanted to convert this to a video timeline and do some more stuff on that, I could, okay? If I want to do more tweens or stuff like that, I could do that as well. I've already optimized my animation. So if I wanted to convert this whole thing to layers, so say take my entire timeline and convert it to layers, I could do that, okay? But I think what I'm ready to do is I'm ready to actually export this, right? So I'm going to say what we did before, file, export, render to video, okay? So I'll do that really fast. And this is a little longer now, so it might take a minute or two. It might take a little longer than the previous videos we've done. Okay, so here's my dialogue, right? You'll see here that I have, let's see, so if I want to save this, I'm going to save this to my desktop. Okay, and we'll call that Money MPEG 4. The different encodings, okay? You have two choices here. You could use a piece of software that comes with the Adobe Creative Suite. It's called the Adobe Media Encoder, and this is a piece of software that allows you to take video and convert it from one type of video to another for a variety of different purposes. Great piece of software. If you do any work in video, I highly recommend you check it out. The quality, okay, and the different, if we want to do it for a certain environment, like an Android phone or a YouTube video or a Vimeo video, they have some presets here. I'm going to keep mine as high quality. We have dimensions that we could do this in. I'm going to stick to 1000 by 667. I kind of like that size, but they have some pre-standard ones here depending on what you're creating for. Frame rate, 30 frames per second. Clearly, if we were doing a higher, like if we were doing something for high res or something along those lines, that we could increase our frames per second. If we were doing this for the web, we might want to drop the frame rate down to like 24 frames or 12. Between 12 and 24 for the web is usually what we see happen. Aspect ratio. So aspect ratio refers to the width of the screen compared to the height of the screen. I'm just going to leave all these set up as default. We want to make sure we do all the frames, right? All the frames, excuse me. So we're going to make sure we select that. And then depending on what you're doing, okay, you have a 3D quality option here, okay? If we were doing anything that was 3D, this might make more sense on how it renders it. We're just going to stick with interactive for now. Okay, and I'll say render on that. Okay, now once I say render, it's going to go through the process of actually creating the movie. Now that might take a minute or two. This seems to be moving pretty quick. It really depends on the quality of your computer, how fast it's actually going to move. Okay, and you'll see now as that goes, okay, on my desktop, I have a beautiful video here, okay, which is called money.mpeg4. So I will open that with QuickTime really fast. There's my video, as you can see, and now that I've done that, okay, you'll see we have a nice little animated video here that we can use in any sort of a way. Now that this is a normal MPEG 4, we can bring that in, do whatever we want with it, right? So now, like I said, this is like a 7-second video. What did I say? I guess I lost track of my math. I said it was about 16 seconds. So this came out to be like a 7-second video. Okay, remember 30 frames per second, so you got to do the math. I have about 196. You can figure that out. Okay, and yeah, there you go. All right. So thank you very much.